which would betray him. It's a consistent theme in his writing before he ever meets Douglas. You find it in the fairy stories, you find it in various other of the stories, the search, in a sense, for a kind of traitor.
You have passions and thoughts that fill you with terror, dreams whose memory stains your cheek with shame. Yet those great sins take place only in your mind. The only way to get rid of a temptation is to give in to it.
Bosie couldn't be Oscar Wilde. He couldn't speak as Oscar Wilde spoke. And that for him was a great humiliation. And so he loved this man more than anything, but there was also part of him that wanted to poison him, that wanted to kill him, because it showed him all his faults, and he made him realise that he could never be that, and that he was inadequate.
Those of you must not make scenes with me. They kill me. They wreck the loveliness of life. I cannot see you so Greek and gracious, distorted with passion. I cannot listen to your curved lips saying hideous things to me. I would sooner be blackmailed by every renter in London than have you bitter, unjust, hating.
That kind of fatal fascination drew him almost knowingly towards him. You see, people said that it was a case of Dorian Gray coming to life. Yes, but it wasn't so much that Bosie was beautiful and Dorian Gray was beautiful. It was that Dorian Gray was somebody who had a destructive quality about him.
How sad. I shall grow old, but this picture will always remain young. If only it could be the other way round, and I could remain young, while the picture grew old. For that, I would give my soul.
The portrait of Dorian Gray is a myth which stands like Odysseus or stands like Medusa. It's there. It's the most extraordinary capacity to invent a myth which will go on reverberating like that. It's wonderful.
Don't, Basil! It would be murder. I'm glad you appreciate my work at last. Appreciate it. I am in love with it. Basil, it is part of myself.
There is a paradox about Wilde that during the time when he must have known that the net was closing in on him, he wrote some of his most joyous and extraordinary work. But it still has that dark undertow, as it has in Ideal Husband.
Lady Chiltern, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you are a little hard in some of your views on life. I think that often you don't make sufficient allowances. In every nature there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for instance, that, any public man, my father, or Lord Merton, or Robert, say, had years ago written some foolish letter to someone.
What do you mean by a foolish letter?
A letter gravely compromising one's position. I'm only putting an imaginary case.
Robert is as incapable of doing a foolish thing as he is of doing a wrong thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a foolish thing. Nobody is incapable of doing a wrong thing.
Wilde and Douglas stopped being lovers in a sexual sense quite soon, though they remained infatuated with each other in other kinds of ways. And I think that it's fairly clear that Douglas led Wilde into temptation.
There wasn't very much physically between the two men, that they hunted in pairs and hunted for boys, and that they were more interested in boys when it came to physical sex and each other when it came to ideas, friendship, the soul, all that.
Wilde didn't start going with lower-class young men until he'd met Alfred Douglas. This was Alfred Douglas's idea.
He described the dangers of the relationships with the rent boys as part of the excitement. This was feasting with panthers.
People thought it dreadful of me to have entertained at dinner the evil things of life, and to have found pleasure in their company. But they, from the point of view through which I, as an artist in life, approached them, they were delightfully suggestive and stimulating. It was like feasting with panthers. The danger was half the excitement.
Alfred, your intimacy with this man Wilde must either cease, or I will disown you. With my own eyes, I saw you both in the most loathsome and disgusting relationship as expressed by your manner and expression. Never in my experience have I ever seen such a sight as that in your horrible features. No wonder people are talking as they are.
Telegram from Alfred Douglas to the Marquis of Queensberry. What a funny little man you are.
If I catch you again with that man, I will make a public scandal in a way you little dream of.
If you try to assault me, I shall defend myself with a loaded revolver which I always carry, and if I shoot you, I shall be completely justified.
When your father first began to attack me, it was as your private friend, and in a private letter to you. As soon as I had read the letter with its obscene threats and coarse violences, I saw at once that a terrible danger was looming on the horizon of my troubled days. I told you I would not be the cat's paw between you both in your ancient hatred of each other.
The whole of Oscar Wilde's downfall was heaped on his shoulder, in that he was young, he acted very rashly, he had a feud with his father, he dragged Oscar Wilde